This is a fraud.
You are the last fucking thing that's blocking us from freedom. Stop hindering us, man. We want our freedoms. Once we give them up, that's it. We'll never get them back.
Welcome to AC Actual. It's Saturday, March 12th. Got a lot going on. I'm going to try and get through a quick one tonight. To make it quick and simple, let's see where to start. Who am I? I gave you who I am. What makes me any better than you? Nothing. The only difference between me and you is that I spend an immense amount of time doing this. About 2 years ago, I was tutored by the grace of God. A military intelligence officer, retired, taught me how to locate, quantify, and confirm open source intelligence. I use those newfound skills to procure as much information as I possibly can. Not much different than anybody in journalism. I consider myself an independent journalist. Why would you want to listen to any of my information? Because you're not going to hear most of this on anything mainstream news. You're not going to even hear what I've got to say the majority of the time on Fox News. I'm not going to include Tucker Carlson in any of that. But as for the rest of the channel, it includes Newsmax and, of course, anybody in the mainstream media, forget it. You're not going to hear anything that I've got to tell you. So, without much ado, let's get into some of the information. I don't know how up to speed you are on what's going on in the world. First thing you need to come to mind or to grips with is that you are living through one of the greatest psyops of all time. Period. Of all time. You've been forced into a state of, I don't even know if I'm allowed to say this on YouTube, mass formation psychosis. If you're not familiar with that, look that up. That is the state of psychology that gave the people of Germany, 1939, to do what they did. Goebbels, Hitler's press guy, for lack of a better phrase, was under the impression, and rightfully so, that all you needed to do was scare the public and leave them in a state of chaos, and you could do whatever you want. You could get the public to believe anything that you told them. And no matter how outlandish and crazy, they would follow you. And when somebody tried to come along with real information, they would be unable to believe the real information. That is the state in which you find yourself today. You are living through the greatest psyop of all time. And that started before 2020 and it continues today. It's been one crisis after the next. And aside from attempting to gain as much power as they're trying to get, it's all about the end game. And what is the end game? The end game is the World Economic Forum Great Reset. Whether or not you're up on that, you need to start investigating it if you're not. The World Economic Forum's Great Reset, led by a guy named by the name of Charles Schwab, who is a right out of central casting James Bond villain, which, that's how everybody describes this guy. You gotta see him. It's legit. He is evil, terrifying. Let's brings me on to the next point. This really is a battle of not just life and death, but good and evil. If you want to know why everything there's moving around, I broadcast from a boat. I'm actually on a sailboat on the water on the East Coast. There is a rather bad storm going on at the moment, and it's a little rough out here today. So try to ignore that. I hope you don't get sick. I'll be fine. Without getting too much further into any of that, let me get into the first thing that I wanted to tell you about. And that is, what is fascism? Fascism was originally described by Mussolini. I'm sure you know who Benito Mussolini was, but here's a little update on what he did. He described fascism should be more appropriately be called corporatism because it's a merger of state and corporate power. Does that sound familiar to you? Of state and corporate power. That's terrifying. Okay. So what does that mean? That means that Ukraine, let's just start there. Ukraine kicks off last week, or a week, 2 weeks ago. And it started off as what seemed to be a wag the dog moment. And maybe not. Apparently not. Because according to Vladimir Putin, Russia went in there to stop a bloodletting. There's a lot I'm not allowed to get into on that. That's on a Rumble channel. My Rumble channel is Conservitude. If I bring a whole lot of that up, I'll be given a strike and kicked off tonight, or they'll just delete this video. I have a lot more information to get into, so I don't really want this video deleted. So I'm just going to try and stick with what I can tell you on this channel. Censorship be damned, as much as I can. So, if you notice, for the first time in history, the United States government declared economic war. There's multiple kinds of war. There's kinetic warfare, which is what most people are familiar with. Then you have economic warfare. We didn't do this to anybody in World War II. IBM was working with Germany clear through the war. Bet you didn't know that. So McDonald's pulls out. All of a sudden, we try and demonetize Russia's population. Not the people that are running the show. They're still selling us oil. As a matter of fact, Russia is still negotiating on our behalf with the Iranians to try and get them back into the nuclear deal, the Iran deal, which is absurd as far as I'm concerned. But you should know that. And that in itself is ludicrous. So now Joe Biden is trying to get Saudi Arabia to do something. Saudi Arabia says no. While he's trying to get the Saudis to pump more oil and they tell him no, all the American oil companies suddenly cut off the Russian oil companies as well. Now they stop buying. They're trying to be patriotic, which is nonsense. The further you get along with this, the more unbelievable all this is. Because let's contrast this with China. You got the slaughter of the Uyghurs. over in China. Did any of our corporations do anything about that? Is anybody doing anything about that? No, of course not. LeBron James would wig out if he couldn't sell a few more sneakers. So the parallels here are disgusting. It's absurd. It's why is the United States, the fascist United States, trying so hard to take down Russia? Why would we do that? Maybe it's because he is no longer with the World Economic Forum. Now, if you didn't know, Putin was originally casted as one of the members or graduates of the World Economic Forum. Now, the World Economic Forum, led by Klaus Schwab, apparently Putin learned what he needed to learn from there, led them, he's a former KGB spy, learned what he needed to learn, led them on this, yeah, I'm with you guys, no problems. Now, I could be all wrong on this. This is completely my opinion. I have no facts other than if you try to go and check out Putin's bio on the World Economic Forum website, it's deleted. It's no longer there. Just like deleted as in just like all the documents that were on the U.S. Embassy website in Ukraine regarding the bioweapons labs. But I didn't say that. So there's one of the changes. So the things that people seem to be ignoring when it comes to Putin. Now, I'm not saying that war is good or bad. It's the opposite side of a coin of politics. You got politics on one side, you got war on the other. We in America wage it a different way. Our coins are more separated. The Russians don't look at it that way. Their coin is, one equal half of each side. Again, that's the other episode on Rumble. So, what you got is, let me just fix this thing real quick so you can just look at my pretty face. I'm kidding, of course. So what you got, of course, is the world coming down on Russia. Now, they're still selling their gas. Now Biden did the Iranian thing. I brought that up. And still trying to get down to Venezuela to deal with Maduro. Now, Maduro, what his gig is we're never going to get anywhere. That'll be a lot of back and forth. Maduro will play him, whoever he sends down there, and, it doesn't matter whether it's Sullivan, Kamala, it doesn't matter. Nobody's going to get anywhere, and even if they did, remember this, Russia already went into Venezuela, and Venezuela owes Russia so much money that there's a partnership there now. So there's a partnership between Iran and Russia because Iran is doing the negotiating on our behalf on the nuclear deal. If we go to Venezuela for the oil, then, we're still paying Russia. And we're still buying oil from Russia. We haven't, or actually, strike that. Joe Biden just crossed that one off the other day. That's right. And that's why he's blaming the oil prices. It's all Putin's fault. It's all Putin's fault. I'll prove that. That's just absurd in a moment. So anyway, so now what we have is China backing up Russia, and now we're just attacking him. So you got us going after Russia, saying, you got to stop attacking Ukraine. Okay. They're in Ukraine. The reasons and all that aside, I'm sure you know about the UN Security Council meeting and what Russia brought up at that meeting and threw it in our faces. One last contrastment there, just because I can't let this go. we went to war in Iraq because we thought they had WMDs. And Putin went into Ukraine because he thought they had WMDs. I don't understand the difference. That's me. Okay. Let's move along now. So, the first thing you got is everybody notices food shortages. Our supply chains have been messed up since Biden took office. They blamed that on COVID initially. The reasons be damned. The next thing that we're going to notice is inflation. So here's inflation going off the charts. Isn't that wonderful? Today, we are living through the worst inflation ever recorded. We're in higher than it was in the 70s. If you look at the chart, I don't know if you can see my mouse thing here. There's the two different ones. You have the red one, which is the way that they currently measure inflation. And then there's the blue one above it. And that's the way that we measured it in the 70s. Now, I was alive in the 70s. I remember a lot of it. I was very young. I remember we could only go to the gas station 3 days a week. And that was dictated by the last number of your license plate. It was Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Other thing that I remember is we couldn't afford milk. We didn't have milk. I don't think I had milk for years. It was rough. We had, it was this powdered milk. You pour powder into a gallon of water, and it was white-colored water. It was horrible. It was, you try and eat your cereal with white-colored water. It wasn't pleasant. It was terrible. There were a lot of things that we didn't have. You know, meat was just an oddity. That was a real treat when we got meat. A lot of canned goods. I can't take canned vegetables to this day because of what happened to me then. Well, that aside. So, as it stands right now, you can tell by this chart, our inflation index is hanging out just above 15%. The entire mass media claims that it's somewhere around 7.9, I believe is what they're claiming. It's not. It's nowhere near 7.9. It's double that. We're a little over 15. 15% inflation is terrifying. That's terrifying. And that's because it's what it's already done to food. If you were to take a look at, let's just take a look at wheat. You have wheat prices have already started going through the roof. Now, who are the biggest wheat exporters? These are the largest wheat producing countries. So you have China, India, Russia, the United States. Ukraine is down on the list there, but they're not going to be getting much out this year. As I understand it, they've already canceled most of their wheat. So there's 28 million bushels, or metric tons, I apologize. Metric tons that won't be coming out this year. I'm sure we'll get some of it out. Hopefully they will. But that's it. Even in the United States, we're normally higher than number 4, but we fell to number 4 this year. I don't know the reason for that. Next thing, let's look at inflation on wheat. So wheat futures, the other day, they had to stop trading wheat futures on the Wall Street exchange because this is what happened. It shot up in the morning. That may not seem like a really high number just by looking at that graph, but it's nuts. So that's if you're trading wheat futures, that's terrifying. That's a big problem, a real big problem. So once you get past that particular part, you get into gasoline. So that's Biden's biggest problem right now, and that's a lot of what I think Ukraine is. Don't look here. Let's forget the border. Let's just ignore that there were a record-setting number of illegal aliens. They say arrested or accosted or whatever. They're not stopping them and turning them around. They've completely ignored the Supreme Court's order saying that you need to remain in Mexico. Law is ignored now. You just don't need to follow the law anymore if you're Joe Biden. You do whatever you want. So there were a record number. I believe it was double the month before. No, I apologize. It was more last month than what they claim was the entire year last year. Was released into the country. Fact checking on all that. And fact check. I mean, just to touch on that. Who would have thought a year ago that we would be censored to the degree that we are? If that doesn't terrify you, if you don't know, I mean, I've been banned multiple times. I'm sure a lot of people have had similar problems as myself, and it's terrifying. This isn't the country I grew up in, and I'll be damned if it's going to remain this way. I'll go down before it stays this way. It's not. This doesn't work for me. You know, freedom of speech is something that I love. I've been suspended on Facebook so many times. I wouldn't even know where to begin to tell you. Again, back to the story. So you got gas prices. Gas prices have hit an astronomical high all time in my lifetime. Now in Pennsylvania, I know that they say that the average nationwide is something like $4.15 or something like that. I paid $4.47 a gallon yesterday in Pennsylvania. $4.47 a gallon. Who does that affect? You know, think about that. The first people that are going to be crushed by this, it's obvious, it's the poor. And in more ways than one, not only are people not going to be able to fill up their gas tanks, anybody that takes an Uber or a Lyft somewhere is going to feel the pain. You won't be traveling by Uber and Lyft for all that much longer. Uber and Lyft have not raised the prices for any of their drivers. They're trying to charge the same amount. I know that they're offering bonuses for very, very short periods of time. To be honest with you, from what the drivers tell me, it is not worth it. I do it on the side, and I can tell you, when I'm on, it's not worth it. I don't even know if I can continue doing it at all much longer. It's not paying the bills. So, to get into the story real quick, you got Gas Buddy is the one that identified U.S. national average price of gasoline hits an all-new record high. Now, Joe Biden is trying to claim that, oh, it's not me. I had nothing to do with that. That's nuts. Now, depending on where you're at, it's even higher. Now, this guy, Dan Gertrude, he says prices will hit $5 a month average across the country by the end of the month. And I expect that. I'd be surprised if we have to wait to the end of the month at the rate that the prices jump, because they went up. It was 45 cents over the last few days. So this guy is predicting. Now he's an economist. He's on Fox all the time. As a matter of fact, all right, this is from Fox. He claims that if Biden doesn't do something with domestic oil production, gas prices are definitely going to hit $10 a gallon. $10 per gallon. If I remember right, he thought that they were going to hit $10 a gallon before the end of the year. Can you imagine $10 a gallon gasoline?
I can't. I can't. This is, no matter how you try and parse this out, it just, for whatever you're paying now. This affects everybody who moves. If you're part of the laptop class who sits in and types your work up at home, you never leave, maybe you're okay with this. But you're not going to be for long if you happen to be one of those individuals watching me. Because gasoline powers everything. Now, if you notice on this page, 589, that number in green, is diesel. In Pennsylvania, it's already way above 589. That's what truckers are paying. So that dropped or jumped over $1.50 already. The jump for diesel was fast. It's like trying to switch from home heating oil, that excuse that they use every year. Diesel took it hard, and that jumped up quick. So everything that you own, you could look around. I assume you're in a house. You can look around your house. Everything that you look at or touch was on a truck at some point. And I mean everything. Your walls, anything that was moved more than 10 feet from where it was made, or let's just say 100 yards from where it was made, which is everything, came on a truck. So everything, the price of everything is going up. Everything. And I'm sure you probably already noticed that. Now that, I don't want to terrify anybody, but we need to start being a little bit more conscientious about this. We're probably got much bigger problems on our horizons. Let me fix this real quick. My voice thing seems to be coming in a little weak. Let's change this, and here's my filters. I apologize. Working on it. How's that? Is it a little better? I hope so. All right. So, you got Biden trying to claim the other day it's not his fault. It's got nothing to do with me. You got Jen Psaki. Jen Psaki. She puts out a video trying to claim it's not us. We have nothing to do with it. Well, according to this, it is Biden's fault. What does it say? The Interior Department is pausing new federal oil and gas leases and permits after judges block government from weighing the cost of climate in their decisions. The Biden administration tried to jack up all the oil companies and try and imply a climate cost, like a carbon tax of some sort. The oil companies, thank God, fought back and won in court. So now, Jen Psaki says, there's 9,000 permits that they're not using. Let me clarify something about this. You need to know that there's oil beneath the ground that you lease before you drill it. Nobody's going to go drilling oil just to guess. This stuff's deep. That's not how this stuff works. You're drilling deep. And you're talking, it could cost millions just to research a site to find out. They're using radar, ground penetrating radar. There's all kinds of high-end technology to find out what is there. Is it worth it for us to even go there? So the idea that the Biden administration could convince us that it's not his fault is I don't understand what he could possibly be thinking. I hope you're not falling for it. Unfortunately, a lot of people are. A whole lot of people are. I've stopped trying to convince anybody about what's going on. I won't let them lie in front of me. Anybody that brings it up, I have to. That's me. I'm brutally honest. So, speaking of falsity in front of me when it's affecting me to the degree it is, and my country the way it is, and my son, which is the main reason that I do everything that I'm doing, I can't let people do that. So, I chime in. I'd recommend you follow the same. Outside of that, don't bother. These people are all suffering from transformation psychosis. So, Joe Biden, loosening environmental regulations won't lower gas prices, but transforming our economy to run on electric vehicles powered by clean energy will mean that no one will have to worry about gas prices. It means tyrants like Putin won't be able to use fossil fuels as a weapon. Okay. I can't afford an electric car. Biden doesn't own an electric car. Jim Psaki doesn't own an electric car. These people are crazy. They didn't think this out. Or they did. And I seem to lean towards yeah, they did. A lot of people are coming around to that idea now, and many are still trying to say, well, it's just that they're stupid, as if that's an excuse. To me, if you're going to run the country, these are things that you need to be able to present to me that you have knowledge in, that you know what you're talking about, that just cutting off all the oil that the United States, we could be number one. I mean, we were making more than we were needing. We were exporting more than we needed to use. So for for Biden to be doing what he's doing is ludicrous. And for him to think that we're all going to fall for this is just nuts. Now, there is something that I wanted to show you real quick. I'm going to try and play this video. Remember, this is Steve Cortez. And let's see what he says. Or no, this is the amount of money that the U.S. is printing out. This is disgusting. This is why we're in such a spooky situation. This is disgusting.
That's a video by demonocracy.com. I believe it. Demonocracy.com. You probably don't want to ever see that video again. That is disgusting. That is the whole reason that we are in the situation that we are in. And there is a chart here. I'll show you this chart real quick because this illustrates it. 80% of the money, the currency currently in circulation today, has been printed over the last year. 80% of it. Now, as I understand it, I'm not an economist. As I understand it, the Fed, who moderates our money supply, only has a handful of tools in order to get us out of inflation. As I remember when Reagan was president, there was Volcker that was the head of the Fed at that time. And it was explained to us by Reagan, this is going to be painful, but we can do it. What they did was interest rates went up 20%. I believe they went up to 20%. And that's essentially, they wring the money out of the market. So it's meant to slow the market down. So we're in a quagmire because we can't do that. This is where the video from Steve Cortez comes in, and he can explain this a little bit better than or a lot better than I can. Venezuela. Let's get into that. Let's get into something a little bit worse. So what Steve Cortez, the economist, was trying to explain there was the Fed has very limited options on what it can do to wring out inflation. Now, inflation is caused by the amount of as a matter of fact, I'm going to show you the best economist that ever lived, and I'm going to let him explain it to you. This is Milton Friedman. Now, Milton Friedman was used by, as a matter of fact, back before the Democrats became a terrorist organization, they listened to Friedman. Everybody did. Everybody listened to Friedman. So here is Milton Friedman.
In the post-war world, after World War II, every country in the West has had a full employment policy, which means not that we've had full employment. On the contrary, as you know, we've been having increasing unemployment in recent years. But that every time, for quite a period, there was a threat of unemployment, or unemployment started to rise. There was a strong tendency by government to say, we've got to do something about this. We have to print more money. We have to spend more money. We have to stimulate the economy. The result of which has been to create an increased quantity of money that in the first instance has had some favorable effects on employment. But only temporarily, only so long as you could fool the people.
Oh.
And then, when people got on to what was going on, it came out in the form of inflation.
Imagine that.
No, inflation is a national phenomenon produced by monetary policy and other policies within the countries. Now, so much for the cause of inflation. It's very easy to say what the cure is. There's no problem how to stop inflation. That's the easiest thing in the world to say. In order to stop inflation, you have to have the government spend less and print less. That's the only way you're going to stop inflation. That's the one and only cure. But you know, the real problem isn't to know how to cure inflation. The real problem is to have the political will to do so.
Those are just the two charts that I've already shown you. So that's from Milton Friedman. You can find that video on YouTube pretty much anywhere. There's a very longer version where he details a little bit more information. But generally, that's it. We get into inflation because they put too much money into the system, which causes inflation. And when you want to get out of inflation, interest rates go up, which they have to. It's not an option. The interest rates start going up, and that wrings out the money, and you bring it back in. Now, the choices that you have there are simple. You could be, let's say that we were on the gold standard. This stuff wouldn't happen. Not anywhere near the degree it is, because you're locked into a set standard. This is what your money's worth. You can't print more than what you have. So if you have a bar of gold, that's what your money's worth. That's the amount of money currency that you can place into the market. We don't even know if we have gold anymore. I don't know that anybody's done an audit on our gold. I don't know. I couldn't tell you the last time that it happened. I think it needs to happen. The reason I bring that up, aside from the obvious, is that Putin, the wicked, evil Putin, is returning Russia to the gold standard. Now that is a huge problem for us. It's not just a problem for us. That is terrifying, because this is the kind of stuff that causes the dollar to collapse. This is the kind of stuff that makes it so that way we are no longer the default currency of the world. So it would be the end of the petrodollar. So you would end up with the US dollar being useless. We become Venezuela overnight. I highly recommend that you look into what happened in Venezuela. They hollowed out the center of the country, so there's no middle class. They all live in favelas, which are slums. Everybody lives in slums. You only have the rich and the elite and the poor. No middle. Now, it's I don't know if it's even possible to fill in your middle. What has to be. But it's when you get that far. I mean, imagine when it would To lose the middle class in the United States would be devastating. Across the board, it would affect everything from your security at home, because our military would contract. We have, 11 aircraft carrier battle groups that are, capable of seaworthy. We would need to drop that down to like 1, maybe 2, if we have carriers at all. Our military would shrink. We, as a superpower, that's over. Now we're just one of the guys on the block. We're like India. We're Britain. And that's it. The EU would suddenly have to fend for themselves. So Britain and all the countries that want us to go into Ukraine and do their bidding, and they would have to figure out how to do it themselves, because our elites will have wrecked us. We will be a pittance state to China, to the CCP. I know that this wouldn't have happened if Trump was in office. This just disgusts me. So there's a much, much more terrifying part to all this. And it's not just the end of the petrodollar and our default currency, or default value currency. You know what I mean? Let's say hypothetically that, Putin goes on the gold standard. Now he's secure. Now people realize, because we've just debanked in a country, we just debanked Russia. If you're another country out there, wouldn't you be a little concerned that, well, hold on, if we piss them off, what's stopping America from debanking us? So, if I were a small country, I'd be terrified. I'd be absolutely terrified. So, that's huge. Now, again, as I was saying, I believe that this is all part of a grand plan. In my opinion, this is all by design. And why do I say that? Well, let's say that you wanted to have more control over your population, that you wanted to be able to know every dollar that they make, where they're making it, even know who they're hanging out with, who they're not hanging around with, what they're doing. Let's say that you wanted all that much information. Well, that would be real easy to do. All you'd have to do is create a digital dollar. The CCP already does this. They use a social credit score. So let's say hypothetically you don't like me because I talked a bunch of trash about the Communist Party. And, well, maybe I talked a lot of trash and you really don't like me. All you'd have to do is just say, well, you know what, he doesn't get health care anymore. Or he really pissed me off. He's not allowed to own a car. His kids can never go to college. Matter of fact, I don't like his wife. We don't even want him to be able to get married. And they check a bunch of boxes. That is the level of control that the digital dollar has over you. Now, what's spooky about this is they make it sound as if it's possible. This is something that they've been considering. Biden just signed an EO, and this is just stupid. Then I'll explain why. He wants to go to a central bank digital dollar. Now, a digital currency was never meant to be centralized. They want to create a central bank like the Fed and control every tiny bit about the currency from there. One of the things that Biden's going to come out and try and say is that, oh, you see how bad inflation is? If we go to a digital dollar, we can solve all that. That's a crock of shit. You know what? It's not going to work that way. All they do have is now a lot of control over everything that you do. Now, Biden, again, he signs this EO, but what Biden already knows is that this is something they've been working on. So, this is research and analysis that was just released, and it says that this is a result of the Hamilton Project, which is with MIT. And they've pretty much hammered out the mathematics for the system, how to make it work. And that's terrifying. So it gets a little worse. Yeah, they're already 3/4 of the way there. So this is the stalling technique of how do we create another crisis to force the American people into giving us our digital dollar, giving us their freedoms so that we can have control of them. What can we do? Well, if you collapse the economy, and you got to think, what we're talking, this is going to sound conspiratorial and crazy, again, Great Reset kind of stuff. Let's say that it's worse than or just as bad as the Great Depression. You know anything about the Great Depression? What was it? 40% of the country was out of work, and we're relying on the government. What a grand position that would put the Democrat Party or the government. Wouldn't they just love to have a digital dollar and 40% or more of the country on them? Now, in the Great Depression, everybody went transitory, meaning there were hobos who jumped on and off trains. They went where the work was. A lot of men did. They just moved around the country looking for the work. A lot of times with their family in tow. And things happen when you're on the road all the time, going hungry, looking for a place to work. A lot of things happen. Crime went up. This is at the time when the gangsters were coming around. They also had the Prohibition. So, Machine Gun Kelly, the FBI was created, who, in my opinion, that organization needs to be abolished, just wiped out. Bring up the marshals to do the job and just wipe the slate clean. Get rid of the FBI's got to go. The FBI is a corrupt organization. I was about to let you in on something that I just found out, and I'm glad I didn't say it, because YouTube definitely would have canceled me tonight. But I don't need that. So, the digital dollar, you cannot, under any circumstances, get away from a currency that you can hold in your hands. You must have a currency that is transportable. And I don't mean by credit card. I mean, whatever its value is needs to be able to be held in your hand. If it's $5 worth of something, you need to be able to hold $5 in your hand worth of something that you can exchange for goods or whatever value you need. That is absolutely essential. The digital dollar is communism and a credit card, and can never be permitted to be It just cannot ever be allowed to go in this country, ever. You know, it's just, it will never, ever, ever work. Now, getting towards the end of what I'm talking about here, one of the bigger concerns that we could end up with, and this is one of the things that could happen that would trigger Joe Biden to say, we have to go with the digital dollar. And that's hyperinflation. Now, let me read a little bit of this. Hyperinflation is a term to describe rapid, excessive, out of control general price increases in an economy. While inflation is a measure of the pace of rising prices for goods and services, hyperinflation is rapidly rising inflation, typically measuring more than 50% per month. Although hyperinflation is a rare event for developed economies, this occurred many times throughout history in countries such as China, Germany, which was a well-developed country, Russia, a well-developed country, Hungary, a well-developed country, Argentina, a well-developed country. They left Venezuela off the list there. I don't know why. Hyperinflation refers to rapid and unrestrained price increases in an economy, typically at rates exceeding 50% each month over time. Hyperinflation can occur in times of war and economic turmoil in the underlying production economy, in conjunction with central bank printing an excessive amount of money, like 80% of all the currency currently in use today in the last year? Something like that, you think? Hyperinflation can cause a surge in prices for basic goods such as food, fuel, as they become scarce. While hyperinflation are typically rare, once they begin, they can spiral out of control. Don't think that this could not happen here, given the last 2 years. Would you have ever thought that they would be taking as much of your freedom away as they did over the last 2 years? What in the world gives you enough faith in our government? And our currency is based on faith. The faith of us, the people. How much faith do you have in the government right now to do the right thing? I don't have any. Maybe you feel different than I do. Maybe you're good with the way our government acts. Maybe, you're copacetic and yeah, rah, 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 Biden's doing a great job. I'm glad we're at war with Putin. He's an evil dictator. You don't know the half of what's going on. That's what you think. I personally, and again, I can't prove it, but I can prove it on my other video, that Biden isn't in Ukraine just for the fun of it. He's not taking the country over. And that aside, we're being led into a trap. This was already predicted by the World Economic Forum. They've been saying that they're going to do this. The next thing that they've predicted is going to happen is a cyber pandemic. What's a cyber pandemic? Apparently there's some virus that's going to get into the interweb, as Viva would say. It's going to be all over the internet. And this is something that's going to have to be eradicated. And in order to eradicate it, they're going to have to kill the internet. In other words, I'm the virus. You're the virus. That's what the real virus is. And we're going to have to be eradicated. This stuff is terrifying.
So it's my opinion that they're going to try and impose a central bank. The central bank model. They're going to bring out or take down the petrodollar, bring in a digital dollar. Whatever money you do own won't be worth crap. They're just going to wring us out. And then our country will be run by banks and the national security state, which, as I pointed out earlier, where is it? Fascism. A merger of the state and corporate power. Now, if you think that if things aren't being censored and changed, try and find this quote. Find the definition of fascism. It took me an hour to find this. I knew the quote, but I wanted to be able to show you the quote. And rather than just type it up, I didn't type that up. I didn't make that. That is off of, I believe it was Investopedia. No, it wasn't Investopedia. That was another article. It took me a long time. It was a history website. It took me a long time to find that because all of the other websites that have it have changed it to not be what it is. It's like, when they changed vaccines, from an attenuated virus, blah, 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 and it's not that anymore. Now we all get vaccinated with a software update. So, yeah. If you aren't terrified yet, I suggest that you do a little bit more homework. I'm going to keep pumping these videos out. I will check out my other video. It should be up on Rumble by now. I had to upload that one. I couldn't do it live. I don't have the live account on Rumble yet. But that gives a lot of detail. Holy smokes. That gives a lot of detail on what's going on in Ukraine. That aside, based on everything that I've shown you tonight, I hope that the takeaways for you are simple. And I have just a few suggestions. Because I figure the only people that are going to watch this are people like me who don't trust the news media. Who are looking, and like I said, I'm going to repeat this as many times as I have to say it. I don't trust Newsmax. I don't trust Fox. Outside of Tucker Carlson, Fox News is a complete waste of time. There is something bad coming down the pike, and you need to prepare for it, whether you believe it's coming or not. The best thing that you could possibly do is prepare food. Several months worth. I have no stake in any food supply, Patriot Supply, or any food supply. I live on a freaking boat, and I can't afford to do a whole lot of food stocking on my own. But I'm trying to get the message out that people need to take it seriously. The other thing that I would do is, I remember when I was growing up, one of the coolest things that I ever saw. Now, my grandmother used to do it out of necessity. She lived through the Great Depression. The greatest woman I ever knew. That aside, she used to can everything. And it was just, we used to just spend Sundays picking fruits and vegetables, and then we would can them up on Sundays. And I just, as a little kid, thought it was just the coolest thing. And she had this pantry, and it was just, it's just one of those pantries with fruit and vegetables, all the mason jars, and it just looked cool. But she just had so much food that, it seemed like so much to me. But by the time winter came, there wasn't as much food there. Now, I can't imagine what it would have been like to have been an adult during those times, not have the money, and your kids be hungry. What would you do to feed your kids? Now remember, it's not even going to take hyperinflation. If we get a recession, there's going to be a massive amount of unemployed people. Massive amount of unemployed people. Far worse than it is right now. I believe that what we're going through right now is an attempt to wipe out the middle class to the extent that they possibly can. Just destroy the middle class. Just erase it. Because one of the things that the plans for the Great Reset, when they in their videos when they talk about, well, we only have two choices. We can either bring the other countries up to the United States level, their citizens, or bring their citizens down to everybody else's level. Which one's easier? Yeah, the road that Biden's taking. So please, take care of your families, do the right thing, start a garden. And I'm not talking about just a small garden. I'm talking about a garden. The more garden you have, the better. There are ways to grow food so that way it doesn't all happen at the same time. So you don't always have to can it. And there's a lot of food like potatoes that they just stay in the ground until you're ready to eat them. They just get big. Carrots, same thing. Save yourself the money and grow as much as you possibly can. I'm not going to get into go bags and all that. I don't think that's really practical for a lot of people. Highly recommend that you own a gun. We're heading into some evil times, and I'm convinced, this is good versus evil. That this is a this is a fight between God and the devil, and maybe this is what you might think it is. I don't even want to say that it's Revelations. I don't know enough about this. I really wasn't all that religious until recently. I grew up Catholic kid. I did the CCD thing. I've always believed in God. I pray all the time. I lost a brother, and me and God didn't see eye to eye for a long time. And then I came back to him. And now all this is happening, and I have a son of my own. And I worry. And I worry about a lot of people. And I pray a lot. And, it makes me feel a little bit better. I hope it makes you feel better. I hope you do it. I would get closer to God because we're all going to need it. Because aside from the fact that even if this isn't just good and evil, what could possibly be wrong with having that? The United States is built on moral fabric. It's the only reason that our business community was able to go global and screw us is because of the moral fabric that our security, that the morality of our security provides to the business. Businesses can't get big if you don't have a moral society. Now, if you know our founding documents as well as I do, and I don't know them all that well, but I know enough to be able to say that our country was built on faith in God. Whoever your God may be, I don't think that matters. I personally don't give a shit what color you are, what your race is. If you're an American citizen, and yes, I said citizen, illegal, you got a problem. You're an American citizen, I love you. I'm here to try and help. If you cross me and try and take what is mine, I'll kill you. And if that makes you feel bad, then try and take me. Don't come and take anything from me. Because now you know what the repercussions are. And people need to start taking their own security seriously. And when I say security, and I mean this across the board, you need to start taking your own food security personally. You need to take as much as your personal well-being personally into your own hands as you possibly can. I think I'm going to have to end the video here because the winds are starting to get a little wicked and I'm being tossed around quite a bit now. So, I'm AC Actual. This is Conservitude. I hope you got something out of the show. And I do this as often as I possibly can. I'm going to try and do it every day, if not every other day. I don't make any money doing this. If we can get a thumbs up and you subscribe, once I get enough subscribers, then I can monetize this, at least for a little while until YouTube finds me and deletes my butt. Once my ass is gone, maybe I can find another way to do this. If I can make a couple bucks on this, that's great. Not why I'm doing this at the moment. I do this because it needs to be done. Because I don't see a whole lot of news out there that I trust, that I would want my family and my friends to have. I'm going to end it right there before I sink. I'm AC Actual. This is Conservitude. Stay free. And I'm going to end it with that.